The secret to being a strong leader. There are endless requirements for leadership positions. Just look at some job descriptions. One of the things that you're going to probably never see on them is that you must be able to lead with humility. And that's such a shame, because humility, or being able to lead with humility, is the strongest influence on an organization's culture overall. So today I'm going to talk to you about how you can grow humility in your management and your leadership style. And if you're not a leader yet, but you hope to be one day, really pay attention to this, because this is going to be your secret sauce. If sometimes you've wondered, why somebody else got the promotion and not this other person, or not you, it may be this one special trait, and you're going to learn it today. Before we get to that, check and see if you're a subscriber here. And if not, click the subscribe button and the little bell so that you'll get notifications when we drop videos like this to help you live a happier and more successful life. I'll be right back.
GILD Coaching. More success, less stress.
There are so many important qualities that strong leaders need to have. Discernment. That's the ability to make decisions. Not even good decisions, just the ability to make a decision and stick with it, or to make a decision and then reevaluate. The ability to receive feedback. Have you ever worked with or for someone who isn't too great at receiving constructive feedback about themselves? It's not too fun, right? The ability to communicate clearly, expectations, to set goals. All of these things are skills that leaders must learn how to employ in their leadership style. But humility is very different. Humility isn't a skill that you can learn. Humility is literally a mindset. It is a way of life. It's something that we must become. Just think about the average workplace. The modern day workplace can feel like a battleground. Some days you feel like you're part of a winning machine, and that's great. And you can forget your humility a little bit on those times. So just beware of that. You can become complacent because you're so used to winning. But then there's other days that you just feel like the day has beaten you and you can't wait for it to end, and you and your coworkers have been given a do or die process, and you have to get it done by any means possible, and it doesn't feel good. And having humility in those situations is also very important, because it's on those days especially that leaders face challenges to their humility, as the temptation to defend yourself or assert your authority on what you think is best, and lose that team atmosphere. And so humility isn't really a skill to develop or learn. It's a noun. It means that instead of having this very high sense of your own self-importance, that you lower that and you take into account the whole picture. It's something that we must become. Humility is really a way of being. Humility is the best form of warfare, because it's the only thing that the enemy doesn't do. Think about that. Think about that. True humility is staying teachable regardless of how much you know. It's accepting the truth, whether you're right or whether you're wrong. It's accepting the truth. So leaders who don't have humility are very proud, they're arrogant, they're pretentious, they focus on failings, they focus on weaknesses around them, they focus on shortcomings, they're defensive, they fight a lot for their viewpoint, they try to convince other people that they're right and the other person is wrong. They have an inability, or it is very difficult for them to actually say sorry. They generally have a very negative outlook. They see problems and challenges as things to complain about instead of opportunities to overcome that will allow you to develop skills for your own advancement. All right, so all of those things are things that humble leaders don't do. So here are 10 ways, if you start employing these in your life right now, whether you're already a leader or whether leadership is coming for you, here are 10 ways that you can begin your becoming of a humble person. And this humility isn't just going to serve you in the workplace. This humility is going to serve you in all of your relationships, because remember, it is a becoming. So number one, share power. Having a formal leadership position does not make us better or more important than anyone else. My daughter, one of my daughters, joined a sports team last year, and one of the children, one of the young girls, teenagers, who was given a position of power or by the coach, like a captain or co-captain or something, was just a tyrant, and she was horrible, and the whole team can't stand her. Can't stand her because she was acting as though she thought she was more important or better than everybody else. And when other people would succeed and not her, she would attack them. Horrible. She's a terrible leader. Horrible, horrible. No leadership traits in that horrible girl. But sharing the power is a form of respect. Respect isn't something that we're automatically issued when we're given a title. We only get respect and when we behave respectfully. Respect deserves equal respect and dignity. So having a leadership role that gives you a special power that others don't have, in a sense, you just have a pre-approved authority to sign some forms and the joyful responsibility of getting in trouble for breaking rules if your team does something wrong, right? So when you share your power, then all of a sudden you're empowering other people on your team to raise up, and then they'll support you. They'll help fill in your shortcomings because we all have them. And then we can remove all secrets. We don't have to be guarded with people. Knowledge is power. And so distribute that knowledge. Middle management and ground floor supervisors need to have knowledge of annual budgets. They need to know the details of your strategic plans, KPIs, the objectives for the years. They need to understand these things. Share this with them so that they are empowered to help you meet these guidelines. So number one is sharing. Number two, think and act on behalf of others instead of yourself. Having humility demands that we put our own sense of self-importance and pride aside. We quiet our egos. We do the opposite of what our survival instinct tells us to do innately, which is look after ourselves, right? So think and act on behalf of others instead of just yourself. Can you act on behalf of yourself? Yes, but only in the greater sense of it's what's good for us and not just me, okay? Number three, give away the credit. Give away the credit. Giving away the credit of achievements to others is something that will gain you loyal followers for a long, long time. People with humility know that there is absolutely nothing worthy of celebration that can possibly be achieved alone. So ultimately, it suits them very, very well to celebrate that success together, to allow everyone to have a piece of it. I remember one time, a long time ago, when I was working for an organization that had a board. I was working very closely with a couple of key board members, and during the next meeting, someone told me, "Good job." And I said, "Thank you, but I couldn't have done this without the help of Alex and Nancy. Alex and Nancy are the ones that made this happen. I was just back here putting pieces together, but everyone, let's give them a round of applause." Those two people immediately turned around, threw it right back at me, and everybody was clapping for each other. But here's the lesson. It was humble to hand. Did I do a lot of work for that achievement? You bet I did. But did they? Yeah, they did. Did they do as much as me? I don't think so. But I couldn't have done the work that I did without them. So I gave that credit away, and it came right back to me. And then it lifted me up to a higher position in everyone's esteem and in the organization, because I got a promotion after that. But it lifted me up because there was no ego involved. And when you put your ego on the shelf, then the rest of you can soar. All right, number 4, graciously recognize and acknowledge your mistakes. Recognize publicly the areas where you need to improve. Making mistakes is not always a bad thing. We need to be grateful for the mistakes that we've made, because through those mistakes we can learn lessons. We can endear ourselves to people by admitting them. Hey everybody, I screwed up. This is what I did. Here's the lesson that I learned, and here's how we're going to prevent this from happening again. Wow. I've heard from teenagers who I've coached. I've done some coaching for children and teenagers just to help them get over those hurdles. There's a lot of hormones going on and relationship stuff, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate life. And one thing that I've heard, a common denominator that I've heard, is how much it would mean to them if their teachers and their parents and other people who were adults who were in places of power in their life would actually say that they're sorry when they screw up. How much it would mean to them. It means something to everyone. When you admit your fault, you own it, own your successes, but also own your mistakes. Number 5, silence your own opinions, give a voice to others. Everybody has an opinion. You don't have to accept their opinion, but everybody wants to say their opinion and they want it heard. Some leaders refuse to listen to the opinions of others as if somehow receiving them minimizes their own credibility or their own authority. That goes back to ego. Being a leader with humility means you are constantly open to the fact that you might be right or you might be wrong, and that invaluable information can come from your staff. You must be willing to ask yourself whether you're wrong time and time again, and the best people to give you light to that are the people around you on your team. Number 6, always be of service. Ask how you can help. The misconception that a lot of people have about leadership is that the leader's primary role is just to dish out instructions to the team and hand out orders. No, nobody can truly lead, especially not with humility, if they're placing themselves above those who are serving. So I believe leaders especially, our role is to help. Our role is to get our hands dirty. Our role is to do the best work that we can to create an environment that's equipped with proper resources to do that. And that's called servant leadership. It's a philosophy in leadership that encourages the leader to share their power for the greater good of the organization. And it helps. It helps everybody. It's more of a share and less of a tell from the leaders, if that makes sense. It turns things into a conversation instead of people being dictated to. Number 7, believe that everybody really means the best. Okay? People usually don't want bad things to happen. So when something happens and you're like, whoa, that's bad, take a breath, calm down, and ask yourself, did this person intend this to be positive, negative, or neutral? Usually the person intended it to be positive, and that is where we have to focus. Sometimes it's neutral. Very, very few and far between will you come up with a case where somebody intended something to be negative. In which case, that's a whole different conversation. We need to talk about how to fire a bad employee. It's not this video. This is about humble leadership. But leaders who build the most effective teams and the strongest cultures really trust completely without question. If something comes up that somehow interrupts that trust, that leader with humility has conversations to root it out and figure it out, clear out anything that has gone wrong so that you can move forward with more trust. People who are in a mentally healthy state, emotionally healthy state, knowing that they have safety, that people around them aren't intentionally doing anything that's cruel or disruptive or bad. Okay. Number 8, accept the organization's faults as your own. There are so many managers who don't like what their bosses, don't like the policies that their bosses have set. And so they say, oh, well, I mean, it's not my fault. They did it. You know, what if you're a manager and the CFO and CEO cut the budget in half, right? Or the board of directors said you've got to fire this many people, right? As a leader, you're the representation of them. And so it's unfair it's very egotistical for you to completely throw them in front of the bus and try to say that it's not your fault. You can say, this is something that's been handed to me from the board. We're doing it for the health of the company. I'm sorry for people who it's impacting negatively. But that's the right way to do that. Leaders who complain about the system are not leaders. They're a poison and they're a problem and they need to be shown the door. Okay? So when we take on a leadership role of the organization, we take on everything that comes with it. It's kind of like a marriage, for better or for worse. We become the representation of that organization, and it's not a cafeteria. We're not at the window saying, I'll take that, but not that, and I'll take that, but not that. Right? So, all right, number 9, assess, evaluate, and review, but don't judge. Let me say that again. Assess, evaluate, and review, but don't judge. Staff depends on us for feedback, and they depend on us to deliver it without prejudice and without judgment, and they shouldn't be afraid of their quarterly or biannual or annual performance review. There should be no stress about that. Having humility does not mean that you're agreeing with everything or ignoring things that need to be addressed, but it does mean that when you deliver feedback, you do it constructively and you stick to the facts. And number 10, leaders balance their personal and professional life, and this is so important. You can't forget to be human. At GILD, we have an entire program that is built to help teach you how to do this. It's actually called The Balance. We also have a time management program that helps people understand how to spend time at work for the most productive outcome and at home for the most productive outcome. Whether you're single, whether you have a family, whether you have a ton going on in both places or what, you've got to find a way to balance personal and professional. If you don't, it's going to show. It will impact your humility in both areas. I certainly cannot claim that I have been perfect in this, but I work on it and I continue to work on it and I continue to grow in it. And at my very core, at my very, very, very best, I know that I'm the best wife when I balance myself between being a wife and being a CEO or being a coach or being a psychotherapist, being a mother and being a wife. I know that I'm at my best when I'm giving it my best to balance between all these things. All right, those are 10 ways that you can start to cultivate a being of humility within yourself. If this has been of help to you, give it a thumbs up. And again, if you didn't already subscribe, hit that subscribe button and the bell so you learn the next time we drop a video like this to help you live a happy and more successful life. I'll see you next time.